When you have confidence behind that fee, you can put out that big fee proposal, and it's not about you, it's about this is what I can do for the client. So that's the biggest thing, is like when you know your numbers and you're pulling your numbers and your fees based on historical data, there's like no wavering. Like, I'm sorry, I know that this is how long it's going to take.
Welcome to the Design Dialogues, the podcast where we dive deep into the business of interior design. I'm Beth Beesky, the founder of More Time to Design and a designer with over 13 years of experience. I'm here to help you navigate the challenges of running a successful studio, whether you're a solo designer or leading a team. Each week, I chat with industry experts and share practical insights to help you streamline your processes, grow your business, and create a studio that thrives. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy our Design Dialogues. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Design Dialogues podcast. And this week I am joined by Katie McFarlan from the Dakota Design Company. Hi Katie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Now, for all of my Australian listeners, you are based in Chicago, and I always start all of my dialogues by finding out, what can you see out your window today?
Well, out my window today is currently 4:30 p.m., so it is dark out. It's obviously winter in the Midwest, so it's dark out already, and I can see my neighbor's house. Like, I have a window that overlooks the side of our yard, so I can see my neighbor's house and a little bit of our side yard.
Yeah, beautiful. So tell me a little bit about you and your business and, how you work in the interior design industry.
Yeah, so I have been working with interior designers since 2017. So started off doing one-on-one client services, essentially helping interior designers just with back-end office stuff. Developing client experience documents, like things that they would be using with their clients. And then, kind of just jumped into that and started doing more, setting up software for them, started working for multiple designers, and then started really focusing in on the client experience process. And just really the client experience process, setting boundaries, all of that. My background before working with interior designers was I had a wedding planning company. And so I have a lot of takeaways from having my own wedding planning company. I did wedding design, event design, and then also the planning and coordination and like day of. And so I have a lot of similarities. And, people are always like, how do you come from wedding planning and then work in interior design? I was like, well, I'm not an interior designer, but I understood the process of the wedding planning the same way interior designers do their process with the clients, right? You start off with your couple or your homeowner, you get to know them, you figure out what they want, then you figure out their budget, then you design a wedding, you present this design to them, they approve or ask for revisions. And then you're in charge of kind of lining up all those vendors to do the work to bring that event to life. Then, designers have an install day. I would have a wedding day and be there on site to troubleshoot, bring everything to life, manage all the people, all the vendors, all of that. So I brought a lot of my experience from having that company that I had that for 7 years, which I retired from that when I had my second daughter. It was hard with the weekend work, evening work, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. I was like out and gone. So retired that when my second daughter was born, and then started doing the interior design work or working with interior designers, and then started, really focusing on the client experience in like 2019. And then, kind of built my company, Dakota Design Company, where we now offer consulting, some software implementation, and then we have an education side of the company as well, where we offer templates and trainings and workshops and things like that.
Yeah, awesome. And so one of the things that you call yourself a business consultant rather than a business coach. Talk to me a little bit about what's the difference?
Yeah. So, I always say that. And people always are like, they'll either call me an interior designer or a business coach. And I'm always like, no, I'm not a business coach. I'm a consultant. So I've worked with business coaches. I've hired them for my own company. And the difference is, and I've like looked this up because I'm like, I got to get this right, because I don't want people to be like, who does Katie think she is? Business consultant, right? If you think, I don't know if you guys have the consulting company McKinsey there, but essentially you hire these big consulting firms. And I'm not a big consulting firm. I have a small female team. But you essentially hire a big consulting firm, or you hire a consultant when you have a specific problem to solve. And so when you hire a business coach, it's more, you have more like general problems, or you're looking for more direction. And with a consultant, they're going to give you the solution to the problem. Whereas what I find with coaches and the research I've done too, to be like, I want to make sure I get this right, pulling the information out of you to really find out what it is you want, what is the thing that's going to work best for you. And sometimes even helping you to identify what are the blocks, what are the problems. So generally when clients are coming to work with me, they know what the symptoms of their problem are.
Yeah.
Generally, I help them to diagnose what the actual problem is, and then we give them the solution. So we don't necessarily do a lot of let's think about this a lot. Or I really more base it on, hey, I've worked with over 100 one-on-one clients who are interior design business owners. I've worked with their teams, their attorneys, their CPAs. So based on what you're telling me, based on the information you're showing me, I can essentially diagnose in a sense that, hey, this is where the problem is. This is what we need to focus on. And then we can fix these other things here as well. So nothing against business coaches. I've worked with coaches who have absolutely transformed my business. But with the consulting, I look at it more like I'm coming in and I'm helping them solve a specific problem. And for my area of expertise, it's really, service design, pricing, and process.
Yeah. And really that user, as you the client experience.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because I think so often they are quite different. Sometimes you need almost it's a very specific, you need a quick fix, come in, fix it. And that solves a lot of problems. But then for a lot of designers, it's more they need that long-term kind of big strategy kind of thing. So there really is there's a place for both. And one of the things that I'm constantly saying to people around, if you are taking on business coach, consultant, mentor, whatever it is, make sure the person who you are taking on can actually help you fix the problem that you have.
Yes.
Be clear on what they're offering.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, another thing that's hard sometimes when you don't really maybe know what the problem is, right? There's a problem because maybe your business isn't growing, or you keep attracting the wrong clients, or you have been designing the same house over and over and over and they haven't purchased a single room, right? There's a problem, but you don't know why. And so a big thing is when you're trying to get somebody to help you is really think about how do you fix problems best on your own, right? You want someone to tell you? Do you want someone to help you arrive at the solution? Some people, they need to be the one who says, I figured it out. I could say, I just said that, but I said it after you. And so sometimes, you have to kind of know how you like to problem solve, how you like to work with someone. So when we do take one-on-one clients, we ask how do you like to be, do you want me to be direct? Do you want me to sugarcoat it? Do you want me to just tell it like it is? What do you want? Right. Because we need to know, how do you like to be told this is broken and you can't do that anymore. Right. Because some designers, they don't want that. So I think that's really important. But I also think too, when you're trying to get somebody, and again, we kind of went off a little different tangent here. When you are looking for someone to help you with your business, I really think it's important to see how do they do business and make it. Because I know a lot of people resonate a lot, and it sounds like they do with yours too. They resonate with how I market and how I talk about my business and their business in my marketing. They like how I message them. They like how I respond to their emails, certain things like that, right? I don't talk a lot about money. I don't talk a lot about cash sales or whatever, people who that's their business, that's kind of how they do it. And it works for them because they have a client base who that resonates with. I find that the designers I work with, that doesn't really resonate with them. And it's also not how I do business. So I think that's really important, is to really pay attention to how they do business and see, is this how I like doing business? Is this how I like being sold to? Is this how I think about my...
That's such a good point, because I think so often, I think as well, and one specific example comes to mind, around advice and how it's given kind of thing. And one of the things that I think so often, especially maybe new designers who are just kind of getting into their business, who are they'll take on advice, and it might be really general advice that they've seen on Instagram or something, and they apply it to their business, and they haven't put it through the lens of what their business is. So, the person who's giving the advice might have a very specific style. As you say, they might have really kind of bold claims that they put out there kind of thing, where the person who is applying the advice has maybe different kind of measures of success and different kind of like outcomes that they want for their business. And so it really, they feel that they have friction with it because they're kind of like, I don't feel comfortable saying this, or I don't feel comfortable doing this kind of thing. And so the advice doesn't really work for them. And so I think so often you have to put, what are you looking for from the experience? Like put it through that lens, because not all advice is created equal, and not all business, like not every, like you're not going to be right for some people and I'm not going to be right for other people kind of thing. Like you got to just make sure that that fits properly. And like, do you feel really aligned to the business coach or business consultant that you're taking on?
Yeah, like one thing I always say to our one-on-one clients or students we have in our programs is like, I know a lot about the industry based on my one-on-one client work. I've seen a lot, and I've seen what I believe to be best practices based on results in actual design studios. However, these designers that I work with, same as the ones you work with, you know your business best. You know your clientele best, your ideal clients. You know your market best, right? You know what you're capable of more than I ever will. And so I think, again, I don't like get into a lot of like fluff, like, woo-woo, but I do feel that after doing this now for 7 years and primarily working with like 99% females, I do feel comfortable saying I feel like I run a heart-centered business. Like I am very much in tune with, I want this business to feel so good for you as a female founder, as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter, all of that, because I really do think that this is an industry, again, that is primarily female and that could use so much empowerment and so much confidence, because like, oh my gosh, you guys, not me, I'm not a designer, but like you guys are transforming people's homes, And so I don't know where I'm going with that, but I just wanted to say, like, I think that that's just so important, is to really think about, the heart-centeredness of it. I don't know. Sorry.
Totally. No. And I think that's so true. Like, I think you kind of like, I think one of the things that I always feel, so I think it's such a privilege to work on someone's home. I think, they are entrusting us with their largest asset. For some people, it will be the only time that they spend such a significant amount of money on their home. And they trust us with that. It's a real privilege. It's the same with like, as a business coach or consultant or a mentor, to be asked to come into someone's business and help them grow that. And that business might be supporting their family. It might be giving them, financial freedom, whatever success means for them. Like for some people, it might be that we are able to grow the business in a way so that they can pick up their kids from school every day. To be invited into someone's business like that is such a privilege. And so I think, I come from it as an interior designer. I feel it's a privilege to work on someone's home, but I also think it's a privilege to work on someone's business with them. And so, you have to make sure that it's a right fit. And as you said, like, I think it's really lovely. So often we are in a female dominant industry, and sometimes as females, I don't think we do ourselves enough justice and give ourselves enough credit for what we are capable of. So I think having a little cheer squad behind you is great.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me, as I said, we've just talked about, we both talk to lots of interior designers all the time. What are some of the things that you are seeing interior designers struggling with at the moment?
Well, I think the things I always see, so not just right now in the moment, I would say pricing their services and boundaries, like really setting those boundaries and then like sticking with them, right? Like they set the boundary, so like I did it, and then some tough client or GC comes up, and then it's like boundaries out the window. So those would be two things that I think are very consistent. Like it doesn't matter what day it is, what year it is. Always going to be things. And again, I think it really comes back to the fact that this is a female-dominated industry, and if you are doing construction projects, at least here in the United States, you have general contractors. We call them GCs. And that's primarily male-dominated, right? So there is going to be some of that, like those tougher boundaries. There's going to be harder conversations. There's going to be some egos and things like that. So I think those are some things that I see always. And then things that I'm seeing more right now in 2024, again, I don't know when this is going to air, but I would say is managing their capacity. I think there is a little bit of I guess this is actually something that's more common. There's always a feast or famine mentality in interior design, because you get the project, you're so busy with the project, and then the project finishes and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to market for those last 6 months. So now you have nothing in your pipeline, right? Where you had the money coming in from your design fees and your, furnishings and installs and all of that, and then it runs out. So I think that's something that I see as a skill set that, could really use more like focus, is the capacity management. Right now, specifically, I'm seeing a lot of designers struggling with getting quality leads and with marketing. So I think, again, coming back to the fact that it's in a primarily female-based, industry. Again, there's tons of males, but I'm guessing probably you attract the same. Like I attract a lot of female designers. The marketing piece can be really difficult for them, right? Because one, you guys are the talent. Like the talent is it's your brain. It's this God-given gift, and it feels like you're bragging, right? And I always say to designers, because I'm not a designer, I'm like, you don't have to even make a Canva image. You just show your work. You show your behind the scenes. You show a flat lay. You show 3 things you threw together on a board that look amazing that I, a non-interior designer, could never do. But I think designers feel a little different about it. It feels so personal. So they always say, I don't like talking about myself. I don't know what to say. And I'm like, you don't have to talk about yourself. That's what's so great about having a business, is it's not about you. It's about your clients. Yeah. So the marketing is always hard, but I think right now it feels especially hard. And then like I said, getting quality leads. And I have to say, I've got to think it's got something to do with the AI tools, more content out there, more marketing, out there. And I think it's more like there's like everybody's kind of drowning a little bit in it. So it's harder to really discern who is good and who's not. I'm also seeing, I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but I'm seeing interior designers who are using AI tools to create their portfolios. And they're showcasing those portfolios without crediting the AI tool, or without saying, this is not our actual work. This is a rendering, or this likeness of a space, or this is to show the style we could do. And again, we didn't talk about this before recording this. I don't know your thoughts on that. But what I'm also noticing, though, in some of these photos, I was just talking about it with one of the ladies on my team who is an interior design professor. And I was like, I'm not an interior designer, but I know this isn't to code. Like, for example, we were looking at this rendering someone's homepage as an interior designer. It is a range. You've got like this beautiful like stone backsplash or whatever behind the range top. And then you have an outlet above the burners. Like you've got a 6-foot outlet and a pot filler. And I was like, wait, so like you're like plugging in your toaster while you like got your eggs on the oven? Like what? Yeah. And I'm like telling my team member, Gloria, I was like, Gloria, like this is wrong, right? She's like, Katie, obviously that's like an AI mock-up. Like, but I'm like, but the fact that this person is putting it on their website and getting clients is crazy to me. So I think everyone's confused. And I think the homeowners, the people who are looking for interior designers, they don't know what's possible with Photoshop or Revit or Chief Architect or SketchUp versus all these AI tools. So it's like, I always tell designers, like, you got to be voicey, like be authentic, have a point of view, and like be very clear that this is my original work, or be very clear, this is an example of a project I would love to do. This is not my work. I think it's so
interesting, the whole AI thing. So like I love AI. I'm a big advocate for learning how to leverage it in your business, because it's like anything. If you stand on the sidelines, it's going to feel overwhelming. You're going to get left behind, kind of thing. But I thought that was really interesting what you said. I think around the content and maybe stuff you're seeing on Instagram and marketing materials, because I feel like, so a couple of years ago, like there'd be an Instagram post everyone would do the same one, and you do your own version of it, and everyone. But I feel like that kind of content is now tenfold, and it's almost like it's just the same. And it's like I think people are falling into the trap of not using AI for the right parts of their business. And therefore, like if we look at content or like those kind of things, it's all just very same. And there's no way of differentiating yourself. And people are falling into the trap of, I've got to produce all this content. I've got to put stuff on Instagram. I've got to do this kind of thing. And so they're relying on the AI. And as you said, they're not putting their voice to it. So there's no way for these clients to go, what is actually the difference between these 3 designers? Because I cannot see how they are differentiating themselves.
Yep.
And I think that is such a really interesting thing that I think we're going to see more and more of in 2025 around. I think designers falling into the trap of not using AI in the right part of their businesses.
Yeah.
Because I love AI, and I think if you can leverage it well, it's amazing. But if it removes the you from your content, then that's a problem.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I see it too a lot with again, all the content, right? It's like, I think that it's great. So we have AI or ChatGPT policies in my company, and we only use it at the very end of anything. So we do a blog post and we say, write a 400 character SEO description for this. Tell me the best title for this. Tell me the URL slug for this. Did I start any ideas that I didn't close in this? Or write a conclusion, because really we write such long blog posts, write a conclusion. But again, I have a copy editor on my team. We write everything. Everything's original. It's based on either my experience working with interior designers, or it's based on my team members' experience being an interior designer, certified interior designer, and also a tenured interior design professor. And so we never put anything into ChatGPT that's to create or originate, or that's paid, obviously. But we do have a lot of policies around how to use it after, and that makes our life so much easier. I have someone who does my marketing, and I'm like, hey, if we're running a blog post, put it into ChatGPT. Obviously, we have a lot of our privacy settings turned off, so we're not feeding the learning tools. But we'll say, make this into a catchy Instagram caption, and then we still edit it because I'm like, ew, that's ChatGPT.
Totally.
But again, we're creating the original content, and I just think people need connection, right? Again, not to get into psychology or statistics or anything like that, but if you look at the cell phone use among kids and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and all of the things that are supposed to make us feel more connected, but then you look at the depression and suicide rates and all of those things and how they have skyrocketed among this group of teens, it's because they've never felt more disconnected. And so I think that people want that human connection. They want that human interaction.
Absolutely.
They want to read, we have people who read some of our Instagram posts that we write, or our blog posts or podcast episodes we do. And they're like, oh my gosh, you were speaking to me. That was to me.
Yeah.
They're not saying that when it was ChatGPT. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're saying we wrote it, and I'm just coming out of my brain. And I think that when I see and hear designers struggling with getting quality leads, I'm like, well, what are you putting out there? Yeah. What are you saying? Because I have hired interior designers for my own homes, and I want to work with someone who I know is going to be awesome. I want to work with someone who feels like me. They're going to be passionate. They're going to be excited. They're going to have all of these things, right? I don't want it to be a robot, posting, and it doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to resonate with that. Yeah. And also, as a business owner, I know, come on, show me who you are. You know what I mean? Especially because it is, like you said, it's a big investment. And it's a long-term investment. It's really a relationship, right? And you got to be there with them forever. You
totally. And that's the thing. You enter into a relationship with your clients. Especially if it's a new build or a major renovation. You're with them for 2 or 3 years, and you'll be standing in their bedroom and working out, how many, where their underwear is going to go, and all of this kind of stuff. It's a really personal relationship. And so I do think it's that interesting connection between, are you using AI to kind of sanitize, in a way, your content and removing you from it a little bit too much? Because if you're wanting to create a relationship with your future clients, which is what we really want to do, it's all, that's that no trust kind of factor.
Yep.
If your content is too sanitized, too the same, too kind of just bland.
Well, and it's kind of, it gives you a feeling of you say that to everyone.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
I have some designers I work with where I get an email from their team, and I'm like, this sounds too nice. Come on, be real. I work with real people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's just how they speak. They're just very, very kind. But I'm like, it doesn't feel quite as special when you're you do that to everybody. It doesn't feel personalized to me. And why I'm a huge fan of using templates in your business and not creating the wheel from scratch every single time you do something. Everything, especially in interior design, which is a luxury service business, even if your clients aren't luxury clients, you still have to personalize like the little bits and pieces as well. And when we set up workflows for our clients, we might have that very first email that goes out automated. That's like, hey, this is an automated email because we want you to get this information right away. We know you have a lot of decisions going on. We know you're about to tackle a huge interior design renovation or furnishing project. You're probably stressed. So here's the information. Someone from the team will reach out in a day or two. So they know, hey, this is automated. And that's why you're getting it so fast. But like, we're the first ones to say that we are doing it because it's for you, it's in support of your experience.
So and that's so interesting because so often, like, I talk to interior designers and I say, like, clients are a little bit like children. When they feel safe and secure and nurtured, they are going to be very, very well-behaved clients. And that starts right from the beginning, from that first inquiry. And so by your email going, we're thinking of you, we're getting this information to you, we'll be in touch. Like, you're showing them that you know what they need before they do, kind of thing. And I just think sometimes it's one of those things that I think designers struggle with a little bit, and they kind of, don't really fully appreciate how important it is. And, I always say, before someone signs a contract, your role is not interior designer. You are actually salesperson. That is your role. And I think it's definitely a part that interior designers struggle with because we all want to do the design. We don't necessarily want to be salespeople.
Yep. That's what I do think. If you have someone in your office, if you're an interior designer, you have someone in your office who can be like your bulldog and they take your sales calls for you and vet out your clients and explain your process and be like, I can't say yes because I'm not the boss here. I don't get to change things. I do find that is such a great role to have if you have that type of support in your company. Because if you're the interior designer and you're taking that, at least that first initial discovery call or sales call, whatever you guys call it, you're more likely to say yes to things that you'd be like, I say yes to that. But you're like in the moment and this sounds so fun. And oh my gosh, this project would be amazing. And we have this good vibe. But like your team, oh no, they're never going to be, saying yes. Oh, sure. She can expand the scope and oh, sure. We can do this project 6 hours away. Whereas your team, by them setting, at that first call, if you have somebody who can be like nice and tight, they set that nice boundary. So it's like, oh, I got to go through Katie and like, we're not, you know what I mean? So like that could be a really good way to not have to sell and only really sell once they get past that first person. And like, they've already kind of ironed out like all the details and like they've had that conversation. Like, here's how we price. Here's how our products are priced. Here's how long our projects take. Like, no, sorry, we won't go sit on furniture with you at, Crate and Barrel or whatever store. They can be like the bad guy. And then you get to be like, woo, like now you've been vetted out. Now I get to say yes to everything because you're a good fit client. So I look for every designer to have somebody who could do those calls for them if that's not a strong suit for them.
Yeah. Everyone needs a little bulldog in their life.
Yes.
So tell me, what excites you about our industry at the moment?
Yeah. So again, I'm obviously not an interior designer, but I'm obsessed with the industry because I love interior design. I am a natural homebody, so I love being home. I have always benefited from having a beautiful home and working with interior designers to achieve that. So some things that are exciting to me about the industry right now would be all of the new software programs. So yes, we were just kind of saying don't use AI for good. But I am finding that there are so many more software programs out there where they are really listening to designers and they are tailoring their software so it is exactly what these designers need. So I think that is huge because, again, I have a lot of conversations with designers who I want to stay small, but I want to make more money, but I want to scale. Well, you cannot stay small. You cannot scale unless you have software. And so having options for software, I think, is something that is so exciting for me. I think, again, I want designers to be successful, right? And I don't want them to have all these problems where they come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, this happened and this happened. I'm doing everything manually. And I'm like, wait, what? I don't want them to like burn out and have like all these issues that come with burnout, right? Because they're doing so many things manually and trying to remember things and they're making mistakes and all of that. So I think having access to so many different software programs for product management, project management, client relationship management, all of that. I think that is really something that excites me. Like, I can't keep up with it. And so as someone who has software implementation, we have had to continue each year to niche down further and further. So now we only set up like 2 software programs because I'm like, I can't do it all. We used to, and then I was like, I just can't stay up and up with everything. So that would definitely be one thing. I would say something else I'm seeing, at least in my community, and I think it's pretty widespread, would be the access to information. So in the old days, and Beth, I know you've been in the industry for a long time, everything was really kept very secret, and people aren't like blogging like they do now. There weren't people who were business coaches and offering mentorship opportunities and things like that. And I find that in our community as well, so we have a group program, designers, or even if I do a webinar, like a Q&A, designers freely share. This is where I am to be charged. This is like how long that would take me. This is like something that we do. This is what I pay my junior design assistant or whatever. And I find that like I'm leading these calls, like leading them in the sense that I hosted it. I brought these people together and they're just sharing this information, or like, here's what I ask contractors if I'm doing the bidding for my clients. Here's what I do for my install days. Like they're just freely sharing. And I feel like that is so amazing. Now, I agree that, there's a saying, community over competition. Now, I don't think that means what most people think it means. I think most people mean like, you should tell me everything you do and then I'll be successful too. No, I think what it means is when you share this type of information, you are leveling up the entire industry because you're saying, this is what I do. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that people were doing that. Or I didn't believe that was something that I could say is my process. Or I didn't know I could push back on a client and say, yeah, no, I'm not doing X, Y, or Z. But then you hear that information because you're exposed to it and other designers weigh in and chime in. And you're like, oh my gosh, okay, so I don't have to like give you my discount, or I don't have to meet you and go to every single site visit every time you think that a nail is in the wrong place. It changes the industry. And what that means is that it has this domino effect on everyone who's related to the industry, right? It gets that if you up level your business and the designer down the street up levels their business, and you have a client or a potential client who's calling the 3 designers on this street, guess what? The 2 of you are both like, this is what we do. This is our standard. And they go to the third one. They're like, something feels weird over here. Like, I don't understand. So to me, I think that this access to information, yes, it's certainly like community over competition, but I think it's changing the industry. And I think it can change it for the better. So
absolutely. I could not agree with that more. And it's really interesting because that is a conversation that is definitely happening here. I think that like that transition from a very, very closed industry that no one would reveal what their hourly rate is, or no one would reveal what their contract was, or like no one would reveal anything. And I reckon over the last 10 years or so, it has really become a much more friendly, open industry. Yep. But I think exactly as you've described, it's like we all rise together.
Yep.
And it's like, I've had designers, really senior designers on the podcast who have said, junior designers, you're doing the whole industry a disservice if your hourly rate is super low. Because one, as a business, you're not going to be making any money. That's not feasible for you to operate at that level. But then you're also making it really difficult because someone will get a quote from both of us and it's like, why is this person charging so much and this person hardly charging anything? And it's like, as an industry, it's really important that we are explaining to people the value that we bring to projects, what our processes are, that there is an element of there being a standardization to what we offer, so that people feel more confident in engaging an interior designer.
Yeah, so I would say one thing that I might have to argue with you on is I think that if somebody doesn't have experience, they should not be charging what other designers are charging. So
absolutely.
Shouldn't. I think what you were more saying is that some designers, their marketing is the discount. They're marketing the price. They're going to price gouge, and they're going to continue to drive that price down to capture the sale. And so I don't think that's what you were saying, but I do think that, again, even back to what we were saying earlier, is you really have to know like who's giving you the advice, what is their background, is when you are hearing other designers saying, I charge $250 an hour, $450 an hour, or $75 an hour. You have to know you cannot take that in a vacuum. It's not in a bubble.
No.
Right? X years of experience. Maybe they did or didn't go to school. Maybe they have a team. Maybe they're on in New York City. Maybe they're in rural Arkansas. Like maybe the highest home is $150,000. So like there's no way they could charge $250 an hour, even if they could design right next to that NYC designer. You know what I mean? So I think that I think a big thing about having access to all this information is you still are the expert in your business.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
to be the one to go out there and tell a client, this is the fee proposal that I'm giving you. And you have to be able to confidently stand behind that and deliver on it. So I would never want a client to feel or designer to feel like I need to charge $250 because every designer in my neighborhood charges $250, unless you can confidently go to that client and say, I will deliver this level of work to you. And I maybe didn't feel confident before because I didn't realize this is what designers are charging, but I can deliver at this level. Then I think that's fine. But I think if you're new, I think there's always going to be like, I never want a designer to not present a fee to a client because they feel like they have to present something that's higher. Because I do think that you have to feel confident in whatever you're putting out there. And in the beginning, you might undercharge. You will undercharge.
Absolutely.
Still charge. We all still undercharge, right?
I totally. And I think that's the thing. I think it's the balance. So I think one of the things when it comes to hourly rates and working it out is it is so specific to your business. So, you know, like if you have a team versus it's just you, that's going to drastically change what your hourly rate is. And, you know, so as a business owner, you need to know what your figures are so that you can make sure that your hourly rate is actually covering your expenses.
Yep.
But I do think so often, you know, especially like new little baby designers, they kind of go in and they're like, oh, I couldn't possibly charge that, or I couldn't possibly kind of do that. And so I think that's where that, as you said, like that community sense, it's like, no, you can charge that. Like, no, you're not going to be as expensive as what the designer who's got 15 years experience on you and has a team of 10. Like that's going to be a very different fee proposal from you. Yeah. But I would also argue that's a very different offering to the client.
Absolutely. Like, for client.
Very different client kind of thing. So it is very specific to your business. But I think so often I see designers and, you know, I am floored by their hourly rate. And I'm like you just can't, even as a solo operator, there is no way you can be running a business based on that hourly rate.
Yeah.
And so I think that is so often what happens is that designers don't fully appreciate all the factors that come into what that hourly rate needs to be, but then they don't have the confidence to charge that hourly rate.
Yes.
And then it's fine for a couple of years and then they hit burnout because they're like, I am working so hard. I'm not making any money. What am I doing wrong? So
or they get their first tax bill and they're like, oh, made $1.
Yeah.
$24 after I got my taxes. And yeah, I mean, I think, yes, definitely knowing your numbers and knowing like your expenses and all of that that's going into it is so key. I guess, so I'm in the United States and here the way designers bill, I would say it's half and half. It's half flat fee, half hourly. I'd say probably pretty safely. Is that about how it is for you guys?
Same, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and like I always say as well, like we do, if you think about the span of an interior design project, we do so many different things. So like the actual concept development and all that is a very different style of work to the procurement process. Yep. And so I would say for a lot of designers, their fees are a mix of different types of charging.
Yeah. Yep. Because so if we're talking about new baby designers, I think one way to not feel so scared and to hopefully not like, you know, shoot yourself in the foot after you know, on a project is I really like for new designers, I really like being flexible in your scopes, right? Yeah. Having flexible scopes, not doing flat fee until you have some project data that kind of gives you some insight into how long actually does it take me to not so much source, but how long does it actually take me to put together a design board, or how long does it actually take me to do a floor plan, or to like do whatever it is you might need to do in the process that you're doing, because you just don't know that until you do it. And so I think I always urge designers, like, don't move to flat fee until you have a little bit of data about how long things take you, because in the beginning, like, you are going to lose money even on hourly because you just are going to underprice yourself and you're going to think like, oh, I can't charge somebody for me sourcing this rug for 12 hours, right?
Yeah.
I think like having a flexible scope and doing hourly billing is always going to be really great in the very beginning to protect yourself as much as you can. and then always add in like a little bit of a buffer in there, right? Like if you're providing an estimate to clients up front, hey, I'm estimating this is going to be about 30 hours of design work, but I'm going to go ahead and add in an extra, 5 or 6 hours to your estimate. Again, it's an estimate just to cover, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So that way, again, you have some safety in there. The clients aren't like, wait, you said 30, now this is 40. And you're like, what I told you, it could be 40. So I think that's always like, again, I see designers not put out big design fee proposals because they're scared.
Yeah.
They see the number and they think, I would never pay that. Well, of course you wouldn't. You're an interior designer. And
exactly.
You get access to trade. So like, you don't need to pay these prices, but you are good at this. You can go into a room and be like, and I would change that too. Like I, as a homeowner, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a million different things I could do here. I don't even know what my style is or what style would be best in here. And so when you have confidence behind that fee, you can put out that big fee proposal and it's not about you. It's about this, what I can do for the client. So that's the biggest thing is like when you know your numbers and you're pulling your numbers and your fees based on historical data, there's like no wavering. Like, I'm sorry, I know that this is how long it's going to take. Unless you don't want me to do anything beyond the design presentation, or unless you only want me to come to like 2 meetings, or if you just want me to do X, I know based on 2 years of doing projects, this is how long it's going to take. So just so much.
It's interesting. You talk about data. And I think as a new designer, it can be so hard to walk away from a client or a potential client because like, I don't know when the next one's coming, or, it might be your first client or that kind of stuff. And so I think that is also that kind of knowing that it's okay to walk away from a client if they're not willing to pay what it's going to cost to do kind of thing. Like you're not a charity, you're not running a charity, you're running a business. So I think that is always it's a constant mental balance that you kind of have to go through in terms of.
Well, and I think too, like, yes, you don't want to walk away from a client, especially if you're like, this is my first project or second project. Like you really do need boots on the ground. You've got to get the traction. That's the only way you're going to learn how best to price your services and how best to structure your services and what your clients value the most and also where you shine the most, right? Like there were certain things we've done in one-on-one services as a business consultant where I'm like, oh, this is like the best. And we get feedback back from clients and I'm like, oh, they didn't think anything about this. They thought this over here was best. And I'm like, what? So I was like, okay, change our marketing, highlight this thing, scale back on that thing that we thought was so amazing that isn't delivering the value we thought it was, right? You have those conversations and those interactions and you very quickly, you get all of the intel. Like there's no big secret, right? The clients will tell you all of the things and you work in a service-based business. So you were working not right alongside them physically, but like you are with them every step of the way for an extended amount of time. So I always say for new designers, like, don't take that huge scope project. Take something small, like do baby steps. So it's very safe. It's very safe, low risk for the client too, right? And it's safe, low risk for you as the designer. Like, hey, let's just do, like, I really love Designer by Your Side. Do you guys have that service in Australia?
Yeah, so there's a few designers that are doing it. And I think it's something that's definitely like becoming more and more kind of as an offering. Because and we briefly talked about this before. I love that it's kind of like you take a full scope and you pull out bits. Because it's almost like a bit of a lead magnet for the client. They get to try you out. They get to understand the process a little bit. But yet they don't have to commit to the full scope. Yep. And so often what happens with those clients who do that little kind of like, maybe an hourly pack or, Designer by Your Side, when they do come back to you to do the full scope, they can't imagine doing it without you because you did such an amazing job on this little kind of test case. Yep. So I really love it for designers. As long as you can make it work in your business, I think it's an amazing offering to have in your kind of suite of products.
Yeah, I agree. I think that and just like a consultation, right? Like a paid consultation where I will come specifically to give you advice on your problem. I think that's just such a great way to, again, get your feet wet, work with a lot of clients, start to see what are their needs, right? Because yes, we can assume that your clients' needs as an interior designer are that their house isn't working for them. But when you work with a lot of them, because you're doing these little mini offers that are very easy for them to like grab onto and book, you get their language. And then that ties into the marketing, because when you use their language in your marketing, that's when people are like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I've been feeling. Like, that's exactly what I need. And then they're like, oh my gosh, you resonate with me. I like the way you say things and you know exactly what I'm going through, right? Because I think, again, too, like interior designers, and stop me if you need me to stop. Interior designers are very fancy. I'm not an interior designer. So I think when I see interior designers posting on social media, everything's perfect and beautiful. And like, they're perfect and beautiful and they're always so fancy. I'm like, how is it that you are an interior designer and you know how to make these beautiful homes and spaces and you're also very fancy? Like, how, I don't know how those two work together. But I sometimes think as a client, I'm not fancy enough to have a designer like that. And so I just think that when you use language that your real actual clients are using, then I start to think, maybe they're not too fancy for me.
Yeah.
Maybe I have clients like me, right? Because you see these portfolio images and you're like, who are these clients? Like, who is doing who has this kind of money? But then you hear their marketing, you're like, oh wait, that sounds like somebody who's dealing with the same problems I am. You know what I mean? So I love these little mini small packages for new designers because there's low risk for everybody involved. And it gives you so much good information, not just with pricing,
it really does,
value adds, but like the language too. So
yeah. No, I think that's awesome. Like, and it's so funny. I was only talking to a designer in the health check the other day about it. And, you know, she's in a very specific niche, and a niche that, she works with luxury downsizers. And one of the things that I was like, well, a lot of these people will have been in their homes for 20, 30 years. They haven't bought a dining chair in a really long time, or they haven't engaged an interior designer ever. And, you know, we were talking about what is that little kind of mini offering that you can kind of help them understand your process and the value that you bring before they commit to that big project, that big kind of financial project. And I just think it's a really interesting kind of way. You kind of think of it as a lead magnet. It's a paid lead magnet. So you're getting paid, you're working your client list. And as you said, you're getting all of this data and information and language that just really helps you kind of feed the funnel of kind of sales. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And I think designers don't always leverage it well. And I also think they don't necessarily see them, they kind of see them as a standalone product, and it's like, great, yep, I offer that. But I don't think they harness all that knowledge they can gain from it to build up their bigger projects.
Well, and I think too, again, I have some marketing about this. It's like, you can make money in other ways. You don't have to be in a full service interior designer. Like, there's other ways to be profitable in interior design. And I think that's another thing too, is like right out of the gate, everybody wants to be a full service interior designer. They want to get their work published. They want to do whatever. And that's great. And that should be the goal, right? Because of course you want to see your projects come to life, and like, that's your blood, sweat, and tears, and to actually see the client reaction and all of that. But I think too, like in the beginning, that's coming. And like, if you're going to be in this business for a long time, if you're going to be successful, like you got to be in it for the long haul, because if you're only in it for like the quick wins, you're not going to last long. It's not, when you're in client services, it is not an easy industry. You're going to be working with people's homes. It's emotional. You're going to be a therapist for them. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much in it. Like, if you're not in for the long haul, it's going to be very stressful. But I just think, having these like little baby services that you can offer and know, hey, these are going to lead to that bigger thing. Like, it's a little bit just like, I'm setting myself up here for these future projects that are going to be more aligned. And again, you do a lot of these, you know, let's say you work with 4 or 5 clients in like a little mini service, or a designer by your side, or a paid advice consultation. You very quickly start to see, I do not like construction projects, or I don't project where I'm only speccing materials. I really love furnishings, or I don't feel comfortable with window treatment, so I don't want to include those in the service, or I need to find a workroom who can do that for me, or maybe I don't, or I just order ready-mades, or you know what I mean? Like, you just get so much information that it allows you to very quickly tailor your business to make it, to let it grow right alongside you as a new designer. Because again, you're not going to sell a full service project right out of the gate. You're not. And if you do, that's amazing, but you're probably going to be terrified calling me or you, Beth, saying,
totally,
okay, I booked this. What do I do?
Never do.
I don't want that for designers, right? Like, I want you to go into it and be like, again, there's always going to be a little fear when you have a business. You're going to take risks and things like that. I'd prefer you don't take risks with your clients' money. And I'm not saying designers do that, but I'm just saying, like, I want you to go into a project knowing, like, I know I can do this, and like, I feel good about this. So, like, I know I'm going to deliver this thing, and it's going to be profitable. I'm not going to do it and die in the process.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is gold. I could talk to you for hours, Katie.
I know. We should do a conversation of like differences that we see from like a coaching side versus consultant side, or like almost like a fast action, like, okay, designer problem, how would we both solve it?
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Part 2 coming, everyone. But thank you so much for joining me, Katie.
Yes.
I have really enjoyed chatting to you and learning about your business. And I love hearing that, you know, on the other side of the world, we're all having the same problem. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this design dialogue. I hope you have found it full of inspiration and helpful information to take into your design studio. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, consider sharing it or writing a review, as it helps us reach more people, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to unlock the power of effortless studio management and elevate your design business to new heights, please follow the links in our show notes to see how more time to design can help you build a better business. Have a great week, and I will see you for our next Design Dialogue.